Good evening. Welcome to Smart Trucking Live. How are you guys all doing out there tonight? All sorts of folks joining us here. The screen rolls as the questions come up, but I saw a good question. It's already gone, but the question is, when are ELDs mandatory in Canada? The answer is June of 2021. I just wanted to get that in there because it's a good question, important question. So got that one in there anyway. How are you guys all doing tonight? Hello from Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Duluth, Minnesota, Brampton, Ontario. How are you guys all doing tonight? How's winter treating you, Dave from Darwin? You know what? It's been a pretty easy winter up here so far. I can hardly believe our luck, but it's going well. Graham, hello from Carroll, Ohio. How are you doing, Graham? What's new, you guys? Beautiful night out there for trucking. Snowing crazy on the Indiana Turnpike. Michael Mueller. Michael, how are you? Bet you could do without that snow. Well, hopefully you're landed for the night and anchored so you're not driving in it. Huh. Funny, no snow up here at all, and down in Indiana they're getting a dump of it. Why is there fast food at every truck stop? Ghost Cat. because they're too cheap to operate. They're really good restaurants that used to be at truck stops. And man, there were some good ones. There were a lot of bad ones, but there were some good ones.
Reading.
Hello, Jacksonville, Florida. How are you doing? Newark. Diesel Will from Newark, New Jersey.
Florida.
Northwest Ohio.
Manitoba.
Beaumont, Texas. I've spent a few weekends there. Steve from Milwaukee. How are you? All sorts. Atlanta, Georgia.
Missouri.
Indio, California. Steve Smith.
Denver, Colorado.
Spent many hours in Indio.
Stockton,
Denver.
California.
Stockton. Been there plenty of times.
Walton, Kentucky.
Walton, Kentucky.
Iowa.
I used to stop at the J in Walton, Kentucky. I think it was about the only J I ever stopped at.
Woodstock.
Woodstock, Ontario. Snowy in Missouri.
Hello from New Zealand.
Loves this channel. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Toronto. Yay!
So introduce.
I'm at the Howell in the Rest area. Michael Mueller. I'm at the Howell in the Rest area. Good spot to hunker down for the night, Michael.
Cape Breton.
Cape Breton.
Tampa, Florida.
Man, Tampa.
Bakersfield.
The internet's a marvelous thing, isn't it? These people from all over the place. The Petro in Virginia. Hello from New York City. Toronto.
London, Ontario.
Bakersfield, California. Tampa, Florida.
Orlando.
Tonight is a Q&A and what we'll be doing.
So this is a Q&A night for us. So send in your questions. I'll do my best to give you the answers. But there's all sorts of stuff going on in the trucking industry right now. There's a big news week so far. New Jersey has announced that they will be implementing their version of the AB5 rule, the same as what California has been trying to do. So the other states are starting to pile on now to protect drivers' rights. So there's New Jersey joining in the fray. My big gripe of the week is that my friends at the ATA have decided to join the Walmart appeal so they can fight the court decision to pay all the drivers for their time. Tell you, lots going on. The drug clearinghouse is now up and running, apparently.
Okay, let's get started.
Okay, what do you think about DEF and having to regen periodically? Graham, I think that's a pain in the butt. All sorts of problems with the regen. I wish they'd never done it. I don't agree with the technology. I've got nothing good to say about it. The stuff freezes up here. No, I don't care for it at all.
Carlos, some tips so brokers don't scam you with low-paying loads.
Brokers are a dirty group, or they can be. Now, there are a few good brokers. The trick I always found was if you needed to do broker freight, find a couple honest, good, reliable ones and stick with them. Don't jump around on load boards or anything like that. Find a couple of good load brokers that you can trust, that pay you promptly, and just stick with them. Get off the load boards whenever possible. I've run home empty rather than rely on load brokers and load boards a few times. It's just, why do the work if you're not going to get paid? So you're almost better to run home empty than take the chance. I just finished my contract with CR England. I'm very scared to move on. I don't want to job hop. I'm from New York City, but don't want to drive here. Yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't want to drive in New York City too.
Is that a subscription?
Yeah.
If you're in New York City, but you want to drive for a big carrier, that's, you know, there are some tanker outfits down in New Jersey, not too far from me, that are actually pretty good, and they pay everything. They pay you for all your time. Tanker's a little bit more tricky, but it pays a lot better. Check out a few of those tanker outfits out of Jersey. That might be a good way to go. Can you talk a little about the old Scots, and did you ever drive one? No, I never did drive an old Scot. They were more of a rough and ready construction truck, and almost all my driving was in highway trucks. And when I did work in the patch for a little bit years ago, and I was driving a Mack to do that. So no, I never did drive one of the old Scots. They were great old trucks though. Are 53 trailers allowed in New York City? Yes, they are, sadly enough. That's crazy, but you know, don't feel too bad. They allow 60 footers in LA, which is even dumber, but
Irishman, what is your take on Maverick now that they have announced driver-facing cameras?
Well, that's funny. Kathy and I were just talking about that today. I'm not in favor of driving facing cameras. I think that the carrier should hire people they trust, frankly, and not have to resort to cameras. But friends of ours at GP Transco, what they do is give the driver a choice as to whether or not he wants a driver-facing camera, and if he allows it, they give him a little more money.
2 cents a mile.
2 cents a mile, is that what it is? 2 cents a mile more. I think that's a great program, but if you don't want it, you can just turn it down. But I think that's an infringement on your privacy, frankly. And I might be able to tough it if I was in a day cab, but nothing with a sleeper bunk. I wouldn't go for, a truck that you're living out of. You wouldn't want to be viewed on camera all the time.
Zach Rides, what's your take on union driving jobs?
Union driving jobs these days are the way to go. I think they're pretty tough to find. There's a lot of crap you have to put up with union jobs sometimes. But if you can survive the crap, and if the carrier's busy, it's a good way to go. I was a union driver for a little while, but when the carrier got really slow, I never got out because the senior guys would just come in, they had seniority, they'd take the next load, and I would sit for a couple weeks at a time. I was starving to death, so I had to leave that deal. That was years and years ago. But these days, if you can get a union job that's going to give you enough hours, you've made a great find if you can get in there.
Trucker Hershey, heard this on the CB today. Have you ever heard this? I have a trailer load of dispatcher brains, so you know I won't be overweight.
Yes, I have heard that. Dispatcher brains and sailboat fuel were two of the common ones when you were empty. But yeah, we always got a chuckle out of that. My company has prohibited the face on camera, but dash cam is a must. That's, I have no problem with that. I think dash cams facing forward out in front of the truck are a great thing because they capture all the four-wheelers cutting you off, and that's where the accidents are going to come from. But yeah, I don't agree with them facing the driver. It shows you that Maverick must be struggling for good drivers, even Maverick. So, sign of the times.
Smark Schwillington, DFCO. How do I get back into trucking after having an accident? I haven't been able to find a Class A job in nearly 2 years.
Man, that's tough. It would depend on what state you're in, probably. But I would go to the biggest carrier there, one of the mega carriers. Plead your case. It's it's kind of a tough way to start back in, but those guys always need drivers. So if you're a decent guy, you plead your case, one of them will take you, and then just put in a little bit of time, until you can find something else. That's what I'd recommend anyway.
And just keep going.
Michael Goza, Walmart is now pulling flatbeds.
Michael Goza, I did not know that. I have not seen that. That's interesting. What kind of freight are they pulling on them? Walmart sells everything. Maybe maybe furniture blocks or something like that. I can't even imagine. I did not know that, but I could easily believe it. When were you driving? Did you like running the Maritimes? Jeff Steves. Yeah, I like the Maritimes okay. The only downside, I didn't go there a whole lot, but the only downside of me going to the Maritimes was I had to go through Quebec, and I hated that. But actually, they put a toll road around Montreal, so that made it a whole lot more tolerable, and that was all right. But I didn't do a whole lot in the Maritimes, but what I did, I enjoyed. At least I didn't feel like I had to worry about locking the truck when I was out there. No, it was safe, and I liked that. Pretty too.
Diversified Trucker, thank you very much for joining our team, and thank you very much for the $5 donation. So I appreciate the support. Dave, his question for you is, with all the FMCSA rules and the DOT in the USA, how do you feel that they aren't making students learn ELDs when we have to use them?
Yeah, that's you know, I don't even have words for that, and that's just crazy. But their training is so far behind the curve, it's not even funny. And then I saw the other day that the FMCSI has delayed mandatory training for another 2 years. And speaking of ELDs, I don't know if you guys know this, Baylor Transport out of Ohio had an ELD malfunction this week or last week, and they got like 230 trucks on the road that all of a sudden their ELDs didn't work. Like, there's the problem with technology, boys and girls. It's not foolproof. It's going to go down, but they should be teaching you guys how to properly work the ELDs, because you'll get to a scale, and the scale guy won't know how to read it, but he'll want you to show him how to show you your hours. So, and if you can't show the trooper, they're parking you.
Gustavo Rodriguez, what would you do if you had a family emergency and out on the road?
I would head for home. If it's, you know, a big emergency, I would just spin it around no matter where I was. If I felt that there was a safe place to drop the trailer and pin lock it, I'd do that, find a safe truck stop, drop the trailer, pin lock it, lock the back doors, of course, go in and talk to the truck stop staff and say, here's the deal. Here's my phone number. Got a family emergency. I got to go. My trailer's out there. Will you keep an eye on it for me? And just so they know the deal, so they don't just think someone's dropped it there. But yeah, I just spin it around and head for the house as fast as I could go. Family comes first. You can always get another trucking job, but your family comes first. That's my answer to that.
Mention your shirt there, Dave.
Oh, I don't know. You guys noticed my new Lettuce King shirt here?
Stand up a little bit. Stand up a little so they can see it. Stand up. There we go.
I don't know if the Lettuce King's watching tonight, but he'll be flattered when he finds out anyway.
He goes to bed early.
Yeah, if he goes to bed at all.
About the t-shirts.
I'm having a load of various type of blinker fluid and brake light and heavy headlight fluid for the winter. Michael Mueller. Some guy I was watching on YouTube the other day, and some new rookie guy broke down. I think his name was OT Rookie, and his truck had died, and he was hoping someone would bring him out booster fluid, and he was serious. And I just about fell out of my chair, and I thought, man, there's a guy that needs a little more training. Unbelievable.
Angelia Mason, thank you very much for joining our Smart Trucking team. Appreciate the support.
Angela, thank you.
Carlos, he loves the Lettuce King stories.
I got a ton of those. He was a laugh and a half to run with, I'll tell you that.
Tony Bush, hello. I was put out of service for not accepting a CPAP machine at Snyder. Now I want to purchase my own machine and go to another carrier. Will I still be out of service if I go to another carrier?
No, you're not. It's only Schneider that's asking you for the CPAT, and I'm skeptical about that. I think that whole CPAT thing is a scam. So, yeah, I get out of there. I hear all sorts of bad stories about that CPAT business. I think it's just a scam. I work for Coke, and that's a union shop, and one of those companies that we're eventually down the road if you don't want to drive. Zach rides. Angela needs a T-shirt. We got to get Angela a T-shirt.
We will get her a
We will
T-shirt.
get you a T-shirt, Angela.
Actually, they're posted at the top of the chat. The Lettuce King T-shirt.
Oh, okay, yeah, they're at the top of the chat.
If
Here.
they look right at the top.
I got my CDL in the Army. I was an 88M, which is military truck driver. I had to learn civilian. Graham Henry, there wouldn't be a whole lot of difference in that, would there, Graham? I wouldn't think so.
Yes.
Most of the guys I ever ran into that come out of the military had amazing skills. So I don't know. You know better than I would, but I think that's crazy. You know, they don't give new CDL students enough training, yet they need to train you as a civilian driver. Just a money grab, maybe. I don't know.
J.K. Weimer, thank you very much for the $5 donation. Means a lot. Dave, he says Bordentown Petro only has 6 showers working at the moment. Long wait.
And for a Petro, that's surprising for a Petro, because if I had to name the top chain of truck stops, I would have named Petros, but it's all in the management, I guess. So, but Bordentown, yeah, it's an older truck stop. It's getting a little bit run down, but yeah, there's no excuse for that. Petro has like a main management number. I would call them and complain, and they're really good about giving back to the driver. If you feel you've been beaten in some way, like not being able to get a shower, they'll forward you some points on your card or some shower tickets or something. They're really good that way. So I'd give them a call. Give them a call.
Marco Val, I'm mad at you, my friend, because you haven't posted any videos lately.
Oh dear. I'm sorry about that. We've been swamped. We've been swamped. So my apologies. I was hoping no one would catch me on that, but that's entirely my fault. So between splitting wood and shoveling the driveway and everything, I was trying to set up our new studio here. So my apologies. I'll pump out some more. I'll keep up with it, I promise.
One coming in Friday.
Yeah, another one Friday here.
Cliberty 165, also an Army taught trucker here. 5 years on the road.
Huh. My first reaction is the military, the American military is such a great operation. I'll be curious to know if you want to go back to the military after being in trucking here for a few years. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're with a good carrier. So, but yeah, I've got nothing but admiration for the American military.
Zach Rides, are you going to any truck shows? And I'll answer that one. And we just found out about one July the 18th today in Burroughs Creek, Ontario. We'll be there.
And we may go to Clifford. I don't know. We'll see. But it's on the long weekends. I hate to cut into my long weekend, but we'll see.
Do you prefer a Super 10 or an 18-speed? Paul B.
Paul, I prefer the 18-speed all day long. I find it's the most versatile transmission I've ever driven. The 10-speed's got big jumps between a couple of the gears. It's a tough transmission. Like, it never let you down. But the 18-speed is also a tough transmission, and I like having the extra gears when I need them.
Michael Mueller, I cursed out a Swift owner-operator who was trading but would allow, I think he means training, but would allow the trainee open the hood and shut off the truck to do a proper PTI. So I let the guy pre-trip my 389 and he pointed and he named everything.
And that was a Swift guy? He'll be a road captain in a week and a half. It's good to know they're hiring someone that knows his way around a truck anyway. Did it make you nervous having a Swift guy parked next to you? That always scared the heck out of me.
Jeff Hope, greetings from Queensland, Australia. Enjoy your site. We are having the same issues as you are.
Greetings. I'd love to see Australia one time. I'd probably never be there, but I hope your fire situation's under control. We've been following that over here. It's quite the thing.
Don't tell them we've challenged.
We were apparently Canada was going to send a water bomber, but we didn't have any that we thought could make the flight without breaking down.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say
Ursula, thank you very much for the subscription. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Am I still trucking? And what do you haul? I'm semi-retired now. Last summer I worked for a couple months hauling lumber, and then I've taken the winter off, and I don't know if I'll go back again or not. Frankly, it's nice. I like working. I enjoy working, and I enjoy driving, but I also enjoy my time off in the summer now. So I don't know if I might find a winter driving job and take summers off. I'll see, but for the most part, I just kind of work part-time anymore.
He's going to do YouTube videos now full-time.
That was from my boss. So that might be the answer right there.
The only good reason to drive for Swift is that everybody avoids you. AJ Deer T680.
That's funny. That's probably true too. You know, I guess another advantage would be that you could always find a load somewhere, because Swift is just massive now. What did I read? 23,000 power units or something. So they're just, you know, nobody would know who the heck you were. You could probably steal a truck out of there and they wouldn't notice for 3 months or so. But I'll tell you, too big for my liking anyway.
Jamie S. Man, you are so Canadian, I bet you sweat maple syrup.
I like maple syrup. But I don't get to eat pancakes as often as I was like anymore, so I'm not sweating as much maple syrup as I used to.
Peterbilt 379. I've heard rumors of Peterbilt getting rid of the 389. Is that true?
I've heard that too, but not in the near future anyway. Peterbilt even heard those rumors, but no, they've come out and announced that the 389 will be around for a long time yet. So that's good to know. I always like the long hood trucks the best.
Read the comment from Jay Ryder.
Jay Ryder, are any of your kids thinking about driving trucks? Please tell us no.
I'll go ahead and answer that one personally myself. And Jay, to answer your question, not anytime soon, but being more exposed to the culture every day, spending FaceTime with you guys in chat, and helping Dave record his videos here. It's starting to rub off on me. So who knows? One of these days I might open a book on trucking and take a read there. So we'll see.
We have a daughter too, and there's no hope that she'll ever be a truck driver.
No.
None at all.
Peterbilt 379. I love the long-nosed trucks.
Me too. That's one of the things that got me into driving. What's the state with the slowest highway speed limit? From Danny? No, from Henry? Ohio, probably. I think Ohio's still at 55. A lot of them graduated out of that, but I think Ohio's still at 55. What pulls better, 475 single turbo or a twin turbo? Michael Goza. That's a good question. The 475 had trouble with their twin turbo setup and got away with it, actually. The second turbo was starving for oil and would seize. When they were working right, the second turbo was more of a fuel scavenger rather than for pulling power. So I'd have to say mine's the single turbo, and it pulls very, very well. I've been very happy with it. So I'd stick with the single turbo myself, just because I know it's good and reliable, and it won't let you down. It won't break. Turbos, one of those twin turbos is something like $7,500. Just the turbos.
Diversified Trucker, again, thank you for the $5 donation. Thank you for all your donations and your subscription tonight. Really appreciate that. He says, I like skateboarding because I have easy schedules. Dave, his question for you, I believe, is he drives a van now as an owner-operator. He's curious about the refrigeration.
I'm doing, when I do work, I'm doing a little bit of skateboard now, but I did years of reefer work, that probably the majority of my career. Well, I did a lot of tanker work too, but I really enjoyed reefer work. I really did. I'd recommend you try it. It's completely different than flatbed, and it's a lot more exciting than van work, and it pays better too.
Paul B., it's too bad there aren't any mom and pop restaurants. Remember when they served the hands first? Isn't
that the truth? And you know, you had no trouble finding those back in the day. The food was all homemade. It was It was much better food. Half the time they knew you by name. Just nice people trying to make a living and, you know, working all sorts of hours just to service truck drivers. They were great truck stops, and the big chains finally made them obsolete. But it's a real loss. It's a real shame. I miss them.
Armando 7R Delgado, what's your favorite thing to haul?
Lettuce, romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce
Or
is
empty.
my favorite thing. I like running empty too, but it doesn't pay the bills. So I used to make really good money pulling romaine lettuce for a guy that was an excellent boss in Toronto, and that was my favorite load and my favorite time.
What is the best new engine for pulling B trains?
Another good question. There's not a whole lot of choice out there for high horsepower anymore, but I think from what I hear, the DD16 is probably the best thing on the market now for that. They have the least amount of maintenance issues, and I hate downtime. I hate being in the shop. You want something that just goes to work anytime you're ready. So I'd probably say the DD16. I'm new in the game. Should I buy a truck or work for a company which is more take home? Brandy, I wouldn't buy a truck these days. I'd stick with company driving. There's too much unrest in the industry now. The freight rates aren't where they should be. The fuel's going up. Fuel always goes up. The insurance is continuing to go up. No, hold your cards close to your chest and go with a good company driver job. That's what I recommend these days.
Angela asked, do you think a driver can make money driving legal hours of service?
Yes, if you're working for the right carrier. And here's the trick. That's those ELDs mandate your hours now. You can't, there's no avoiding it. There's no sneaking around. So your carrier has got to be paying you good money to make it worth your while to drive a truck for a living. And more of these carriers now with the ELDs that are paying 35 cents a mile are losing guys hand over fist. They haven't figured it out. You've got to be making decent money for all your time now, or no one's going to stay in this industry. And some carriers are paying it. Some carriers are smart enough to know the private fleets and stuff like that. They're all paying by the hour. They're all paying you for everything that you do. So yes, you can still work a legal hours of service job and make $80,000 a year, and that's all right.
Grilled Mortal, where was the White Stallion truck stop?
In MacTier, Ontario. And that was kind of a dumpy old truck stop, but it was about the only game we had up here then. But that's where it was, MacTier, Ontario. I lost my screen here.
Marco Val, I get 60 cents a mile and Speedo miles.
Huh, that's a good carrier. That's good money. And hub miles, speedometer miles, best way to do it. So no, you're doing fine. That's a good job. Hang on to that job. There we go. Dave, are you going to make your Peter Yard ornament? No, Michael. I'm just waiting for the good weather. I'll bring it out again. I didn't have much time to play with it last year. By the time I got everything done on it, we got an early snow, and I don't like the salt on it, so I parked it. But it's ready and raring to go for the spring. And there's another reason I might take the whole summer off, just so I can drive my truck around all summer instead of driving somebody else's. I've like a little company Freightliner for the lumber yard, but it's not even a real truck. It's kind of a toy truck, so I like my Pete better.
Ryan Mina, how to get experience as a new Class 1 truck driver?
Take the first job you can find. Frankly, it's sad. The mega carriers hire new guys, but sometimes it depends on where you live too. Sometimes you can get a deal running dump truck or something like that, or for a local guy. But you pretty much have to take the first thing you can latch on to until you get a little seat time, and that can be tough. But there's such a driver shortage, you'll find something. Just take whatever you can get to get going.
Michael Mueller, I grossed $70,000 with Smith Transport last year.
Yeah, that's not too shabby at all. That's not too shabby at all. You're doing all right there.
And Angela states she made $32,000 after 11 years, and she's also stated in her next post that she needs to find a better carrier.
Yes, Angela, I'd agree. That's not enough money for what you're worth. So yeah, shop around. You've got a little seat time. Find someone else.
Yeah, after 11 years.
Yeah. What's my favorite trucker movie? Mine was like White Line Fever, Flight 000. What's my favorite trucker movie?
You're asking me?
Yeah. I don't know.
Gone with the Wind.
No, that wasn't a trucker movie. Smokey and the Bandit, probably. I don't know. What was that one with David Jansen? That was a really good one too. I can't think of the title of it.
Convoy.
No. I thought Convoy was kind of corny. It was okay. And what was that really bad one? Black Dog. That was a dog, that movie. But not a fan of, what's that guy's name? Patrick Swayze. I wasn't a fan of him. I guess I can talk bad about him now he's gone. Let me see. Convoy.
Pays $30 an hour.
$30 an hour is respectable. Yep, I wouldn't sneeze at that anymore.
For a 55-year-old CDL holder out of school, which division is best? What would you suggest?
I'd suggest local or short haul.
Van work for sure.
Yeah, van work probably, because flatbed's a lot of physical work, or tanker work, something like that. But something close to home, like local or regional, something like that. You don't want to be living out on the road at 55 years old. And it'll pay better too. The over-the-road stuff just doesn't pay what it should anymore.
Daniel Meredith Jr., thank you very much for the $2.99. Appreciate that. David's question for you is, can you make money by crossing borders, U.S. to Canada?
Yes. In fact, that was the majority of what I used to do, and that was why I used to do it, because running cross-border paid better money. So yes, there is better money in that.
Gustavo, why don't you put a drop visor on your Pete? Good question.
You know, I might do that this year. I've looked at that, and I hate drilling new holes. So I was trying to find a drop visor that I could attach
with duct tape
to the factory brackets, because I didn't want to have to drill out those brackets and drill new holes. But I didn't really find one I liked the look of. So I don't know. I hate drilling holes in a truck that doesn't leak, but I do like the look of some of those drop visors. You might see me do that this year.
Jay Ryder, most guys getting into trucking now are 55 years old. We're finding an awful lot of people with a second and third career wanting to get into trucking as they even get closer to retirement.
It's true, and you know, these big layoffs in the auto industry are fueling the truck driving market, because all sorts of guys are getting laid off in the auto manufacturing, and they're too young to retire. So trucking seems to be kind of a natural fit. A lot of those guys are kind of mechanical and that type of thing. So a lot of guys getting into trucking, and which is nice to see.
Mike McCall states that propane pays very well and home every day. That's good to know.
Propane does pay very well, and you're home a lot, but it's dangerous. So you've really got to pay attention to what you're doing. You can't be distracted at all. But you know, for the right guys, the guys that pay a lot of attention to what they're doing, it's a good deal, yeah.
John Spencer, what do you think the advantages of ELDs are?
The advantages are that the carriers can't push you around. In the old days, it was unbelievable some of the things they do. They tell you to run 1,500 miles overnight, stupid things like that. Of course, you couldn't do it, but they just, they'd promise overnight delivery, and you'd be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles away. The ELDs have stopped that, and they keep you within your legal bracket. Now, all sorts of trucking companies will still badger you, but you've got the ELD for protection. And if you get a message from your carrier saying, you gotta run over, this load's got to be there by this time, and you can just type in, sorry, out of hours, or sorry, the weather's bad, or sorry, I'm tired. That message is trapped in the cloud. You can show that to any DOT guy when your carrier's trying to push you, and that's the end of the argument right there. So I like the ELDs. They're on our side. I like them.
Flight 000, I'm 52 and getting ready to start my trucking career here in Detroit.
Oh, nice! Congratulations. I'd be curious to know where you're running. I used to haul into Romulus, Michigan, a fair bit, which is just outside Detroit, and there's lots of trucking in that neck of the woods.
Dave, I believe we have a video coming out on Friday that Flight 000 might want to check out. Am I right?
Yes, you do need to check that out.
What's it going to be on?
I forget. They're setting me up here. No, it's about the history of deregulation, and it's not. That's a different one. Better ask Nick. He'd know better than I would.
Top 10 things you need to know about getting into
Oh
trucking.
yeah, we just filmed that yesterday or today.
This afternoon.
Yeah, this afternoon. Top 10 things new drivers should know. That's the one that's coming out Friday. Too much going on, and I'm an old fuddled up guy. I get my brand new 2020 389 next week, Smith Transport. Michael Mueller. Oh, way to go. You know. I always heard Smith was a good deal too, and those guys have been around for a long time, and they keep their equipment really nice. You're with a good carrier there, Michael.
Vassal Holla, I would like your opinion on Trimac. Are owner-operators in a disadvantage to company drivers at this company? Good question.
Good question, and I know the answer to that, and the
Yes.
answer is yes, they sure are. I actually worked for Trimac for a couple of years, and they've got all sorts of company trucks. So yes, owner-operators are at a huge disadvantage there because Trimac will take care of its own trucks first, every time. The owner-operators will get whatever they don't want to give the company trucks or whatever they've got left over. So no, I wouldn't lease on with Trimac.
John Gaffney is making popcorn. Make sure you add butter and salt, and I'll be right over.
Oh man, you're making me hungry now. What's your advice for new ops, especially this kind of market when the rates are very low and the expenses are high? My advice is stick in the company truck. You don't want to be investing in a truck right now. If you've got a truck that's already paid for or mostly paid for, hang on to it and be careful. You can't afford a big breakdown these days, but these days the market is not looking good for owner operators. You've got to be very careful. So you don't want to lose your shirt on this deal. There have been times when I've parked mine and driven company truck just because the rates weren't good enough and the costs were too high.
What is your opinion as a company LTL city driver?
I heard those guys make big money. You've got to have nerves of steel and the patience of Job to do that kind of work. But I think that's pretty good secure work. I understand it pays really well. I've never done it, but I've known lots of guys that have, and they've done it for good, reliable carriers, unionized carriers, and they've come away with a good pension and had a good life and not been overstressed. But it's hard work. It is hard work, and putting up with the traffic, you got to have patience.
Robert Armstrong, if you're 16, don't get into trucking. Go get a trade. Trucking is a low-paying job nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. I see now that the ATA is pushing to hire 18-year-old drivers to run interstate because they're trying to satisfy the driver shortage. But no, I wouldn't recommend over-the-road driving these days. Not for anybody. The money's not there. It doesn't pay enough for all the work you have to do.
Would you recommend going to an auction or going to a dealership? I suppose he's talking buying a truck. Which would you
I'd go to a dealership. I'd avoid auctions like the plague because you have no idea what you're getting out of the auction yard. You may get a truck that they've been trying to repo for a year and the guy hasn't changed the oil for a year. You don't know anything about it. I'd go to a dealership or a reliable dealership and not one of these dealerships that just buys and sells used trucks. I'd go to like a Freightliner or a Pete or Kenworth dealer, someone that has the truck on trade. They'll know the owner that traded it in. They'll know a bit of the history. Probably they've done the maintenance work on the past. I'd get it from a dealership all day long.
They will offer some sort of a warranty with it as well.
Yes, that's right.
Diversified Trucker, thank you very much for the $10 donation. Killing it tonight. Dave, his question for you is, what is the difference between a CVOR and a DOT, and why can't we take work within the same country? He has a buddy in Edmonton, and he himself is from Missouri, and they both want to know the answer to this question.
That's a complex and political question, but what the CVOR is, your Canadian Operating Authority, and the DOT is American.
Record.
Pardon me?
Canadian Operating Record.
Okay, Canadian Operating Record. The problem is that the United States is very strict about what they used to call interstating, and now they call cabotage. Now, Canada allows American carriers to run point to point in Canada. I don't know why, but in the States, Canadian trucks are not allowed to run point to point in the U.S. The Americans are very careful to protect their own truck drivers, so they don't want to see American truck drivers losing freight to Canadian trucks. It's as simple as that. I agree with that. It's, you know, it's a tough deal, but I can certainly understand where they're coming from. I don't know why Canada doesn't do the same for the Canadian truck drivers, but it's just a matter of the American laws. They used to call it interstating, now they call it cabotage, but that's why the Americans don't allow it.
Cameron Whitert, what caused emissions standards?
California caused emissions standards. California, in their race to clean up their own pollution, developed CARB. And CARB literally has set the emission standards for the rest of North America now. Now, not all states are following CARB regs yet, but they're pushing for that. And I think you'll see that. But really, it was an effort out of California, born out of California, to try to clean up the air. And I find it a little bit hypocritical because it's not nearly as heavily enforced on other industries like the rail industry or the construction industry or the lake freighter industry, stuff like that. But trucking was kind of an easy target, so that's where that all came from anyway.
Daniel Meredith Jr., thank you very much for the $5 donation. Dave, he says, Swift doesn't do manuals anymore. After a 3-week course with an automatic, 250 hours of training with a mentor, and you get your license. I am a Swift driver, and it's a joke.
That's just scary, isn't it, Daniel? All I can say is you've got to do your best to protect yourself, because the big outfits like Swift are only worrying about their pocketbooks. They're not worrying about their drivers. It's not right, but that's the way it is.
Manuel. A client of mine said her son is an owner-operator and pulls tankers with chemicals or fertilizers, grossing $300,000 a year. Is that possible?
No.
No.
No. Diversified Trucker. Seems ignorant, Dave, but thank you. Love the channel. Thank you, Dan. Or thank you, Diversified.
Thank you very much for the $5 donation, Diversified. Appreciate the support. Once again, absolutely going off tonight with the donations.
Ryan, is truck driving still a good career? If you're with the right carrier, it is. Yes, but there are so many slob carriers out there, you've really got to be careful who you work for. Most of them out there now will just take advantage of you and run you hard, burn you out, and kick you out at the end of the day. But so if you get with a private fleet or something like that, it's a good career. but you've got to be careful who you work for. You've got to be so careful. Just make sure you're working for someone that pays you for everything that you do, and that's the secret. Work by the hour, if possible.
So what is the process to cross the border to Canada for an owner-operator from someone in the U.S.? Are there a lot of costs or permits involved?
No, there are not a lot of costs or permits involved. What they'll want you to have is a passport, so they can check your criminal record. And if you've got a criminal record, you probably don't want to try crossing into Canada. If you've got a firearm on board, you definitely don't want to cross into Canada, because they'll just throw you in jail for that. But the process isn't that bad, as long as the company takes care of the paperwork for the freight, so they make sure the duty's paid on the freight. For the driver himself, if you've got a legal passport, no criminal record, and no gun, it's not a big deal to get in. It's not hard at all. Is Pam Transport a good company? No. Sherigan. Sorry to be blunt, but no, not particularly. They're in a big legal fight now because their drivers were making less than minimum wage, and they're in big trouble with that. The courts told them to pay their drivers for all their time. They're fighting that.
Gustavo Rodriguez, sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of that. Thank you very much for the $2 donation.
Angela, please answer the 1099 question. By the 1099 question, I think what that refers to is whether it's a good idea to work for a driver service. And no, it particularly isn't, because the revenue agency will come after you for that, and they'll audit you and have a hard look at your taxes. If you're a regular employee, the company takes your taxes out, and then if they make a mistake, it's their fault half the time. But you don't want to get into a situation where you're some sort of a driver service, because the revenue people love to attack guys like that. And in some places it's not even legal, as Kat half a points out there. So no, avoid it. Emil, how is Melton? I don't know a whole lot about them. You never hear a whole lot about Melton. I can't say I remember ever hearing anything bad about them anyway. I think they're kind of a middle of the road carrier. They might be all right. I don't think you'll get rich there, but if there's one in your neighborhood and they have freight going the direction you like, it might be worth checking out.
I missed the exact question, but someone had asked your opinion on United Petroleum Transport.
Good outfit. I wouldn't be afraid to work with those guys. No, I liked hauling petroleum too. It was a good job. Yeah, again, you have to be careful. You can't throw caution to the wind. You got to pay attention. But no, any kind of tanker work I always found was pretty good. And United Petroleum's a good operation. Zach rides. I work for Coke. They're good to drive for. I've always heard that. Coca-Cola was excellent to work for.
Here's something else you can comment on. Thoughts on Clean Harbor?
We have a friend that works at Clean Harbor. He's been there for a number of years now. He makes very good money. They treat him well. Good job. It's dangerous. You got to know your stuff. You got to be up on your hazmat regs. But they've been around for a long time, and they're a very reputable outfit. The interesting thing about them is they're more of a hazmat operation that has trucks rather than a trucking company. So they tend to pay their people for everything they do and that type of thing. So no, I seriously think about working for Clean Harbor. It's a good operation.
Mudlife asked, have you ever done flatbed?
Well, I've done a little bit of flatbed here and there. Like in the past couple of summers, I've been hauling lumber on a flatbed, and I've done a little bit of flat work before that. I used to get the occasional load of jet engines out of Toronto into the west coast of California, into San Francisco and Washington State and that type of thing. I liked it. It was I didn't care for the tarping too much, but because the weather didn't always cooperate. But for the most part, I like flatbed. And if you got the right load, you could make pretty good money on it. The flatbed loads, those jet engines I hauled, paid really well, and I hardly burned any fuel pulling them around. They're light. They don't they don't grab a whole lot of wind, but no, it's good work. They, it's like everything else, so you can get some ugly loads, but no, I liked it.
Here's a question for you. Have you ever driven with a firearm for your protection?
No, I never have. Canadians aren't allowed to carry firearms in the trucks, so no, I don't even own a firearm. So no, I haven't ever done that. There's a few times when I wish I'd have had one, but no, I never have had one.
Michael Mueller, what do you think of super singles?
Michael, I'm not a big fan of those. Now, I don't know if Smith set you up with those. You might have a different opinion, but I was down, where the heck was I one time? Southern Utah, and I was getting a tire work done, and this tire shop had stock rims as well as super single tires. They had super single rims. So I said to the guy, what's the deal with all the rims? He says, well, when one of those super singles blows, it immediately drops. There's no tire beside it to support it. So it immediately drops and chews up the rim. So he says, I'm making a fortune out here in the middle of nowhere. He says, I get a service call, I get to sell them another tire, and I get to sell them another rim. And the rims are about $650, $700. Tires even more. He says, I'm making a fortune. So I don't like super singles because of that. I know they get stuck easier in snow, and up where I live, we get lots of snow. So I'm not a fan of super singles. I know they save weight. I know a lot of people are going to them, but if I was buying a truck, I wouldn't order them. Thoughts on Tyson? I hear Tyson's a good operation to work for. Again, they're kind of a factory fleet. So yeah, I hear good things about Tyson.
Jeremy Morgan, I've got 5 firearms in the truck right now.
Man, do you really? Where do you run? Like the Bronx or the Loop in Chicago? Be careful. Don't try coming up to Canada with those. No. They'll throw you in the can and throw away the key.
Never get out. What is your opinion on def deletes?
I would have done that myself if I'd been forced into buying a def truck. I would have gone glider kit before that. But now, I would have deleted the def earlier, and all sorts of my friends have done that. Now here in Ontario, they're cracking down on that, and they're pulling trucks over and checking to see if the def has been deleted from the trucks, and they park the truck right away, like they just impound it now, up here. And they've just started that. They just impound the truck, and you've got to tow it to a shop, get it changed back. To put the def system back in runs like 17, 18, 19 grand. So can you afford the hit? So these days, probably not a good idea to do it anymore. It was a patch solution, and it was a good idea at the time. Well, all sorts of guys did it, but they've caught on, so they're checking now.
Have you ever been robbed?
No, I've been lucky that way too. I've always been very careful where I went and where I've stopped, but no, I've never been robbed.
Gersimran, thank you very much for the $10 donation. Really appreciate that. He says, Dave, he's 22 years old, just over 2 years under the belt going through the Rockies in BC. Just got an ELD, got a driver-facing cam for cheaper insurance. Headed to the States for the first time tomorrow. Any tips that you can give him in a decent amount of detail?
My biggest tip is to be nice as you could possibly be to the customs, the border agent there, because those guys can ruin your day. They can ruin your career if they want to. So just take the yes or no sir attitude with those guys, and just be as nice as pie. Do everything they want. When you get into the States, don't speed. Be careful what you do, but just mind your P's and Q's, and you'll be fine.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. Looking to buy a new 389 under my authority. What's a profitable wagon to pull? Well, these days, flatbed guys or tankers are the way to go. Reefer work's gone a little flat. Van, there's no money left in van anymore, but But a flatbed or a tanker, I'd say, Brandon, be my guess. What are your thoughts on livestock hauling, Sean? I wouldn't want to clean out the trailers. It's hard work, and they've been exempted from the ELDs now, is my understanding. It doesn't turn my crank because I like to sleep when I finally land and crawl in the bunk, and cattle trailers rock and roll all night long as the girls move around in there. So I'd never get to sleep. That'd be my problem with that. And now you've got to stop and let them out every once in a while too. That'd be a pain in the butt. I certainly understand it for the cow's sake, but
Just wanted to hop back to the young man that mentioned that he was going to the U.S. tomorrow for the first time. One of the things he mentioned was that he just got an ELD and a driver-facing cam. We never really addressed any tips you could give him if he's just starting with an ELD.
the ELD, once you trigger it, like once you start to move the truck, it'll just run until your 14 hours are up. So even you can't even cross the truck stop at night to go fuel the truck or something like that. You could trigger the ELD and get a violation. They're very difficult to work with until you get used to them. Something else I'd recommend doing is stopping early for the night. So if you've got to move the truck around for fuel or something like that, you won't trigger the ELD when you're out of hours. So find a place early to land for the evening and look at the thing in the morning and check to make sure you're okay for hours before you move the truck. Don't move it a foot until the ELD says you're good to go.
And stop well before you're out of hours.
And yeah,
Make sure.
stop well before you're out of hours.
Any recommendations for running Canada?
Don't. the freight's cheap, the fuel's expensive. That's why I always ran in the States. Trucking's not very good up here anymore. So, no, if you can avoid it, stay in the U.S. The money's better. The truck stops are way better. Truck stops are virtually non-existent up here, and the weather's nicer in the States. So, Canada's kind of a last-ditch effort.
And another reason to land early is to make sure that you get a good parking spot. Robert Armstrong.
Exactly. Great point. Great point. And parking, especially if you're east of the Mississippi, parking is a real premium anymore. So, yeah, land early to get a good spot.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we're going to wind it down.
Okay.
John Smith, driving in Oregon. I'm 21, just got my CDL without school. Any tips for truck stops and my first year?
I always liked the Petros. I always found the food was the best. I always found the showers were the cleanest, and they almost always had a canoe full of parking. So I stuck to Petros.
Marco Val, why don't you do the ice road trucking thing?
You know what? I tried that once with a friend. I didn't like it, and I hate the cold. I hate the cold, so that's why. And it doesn't pay big money anymore like it used to. So yeah, it doesn't do it for me. See, Shannon's on here. Dave, would you rather run 80 through southern Wyoming or just take 70 and chain if you have to? I always liked 80, Shannon. I ran 80 all the time. Knew the best places to stop, like Little America. No, I like 80.
One more question. Do truck stops and highways in Canada, are they as crowded as in the U.S.? I mean, are as many trucks as there are in the U.S.?
The 401 here between Ontario and Quebec is very crowded for trucks, but not so much the rest of Canada. And in the States too, of course, it depends on where you are. Like you go through New York or Chicago or something like that, it's crowded through there. But you get out into Wyoming, like Shannon and I were just talking about, and it's not crowded at all. And that's why I liked running west. I didn't like all the traffic. So it depends on where you are. But most of Canada is fairly dead for truck traffic.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up here. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Really enjoy talking with you guys. It's great to talk with other truck drivers. I don't get to do it too much anymore. Really like it. Thank you very much.
And thank you everyone for the donations this evening and all the subscriptions that we had. It really helps us keep going with these live streams, and we want to bring you guys more of these live streams because we personally really enjoy doing them. I know I have a blast sitting here reading chat, and I know definitely for sure Dave enjoys answering everybody's questions. So again, thank you guys.
Thank you. You guys stay safe, keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you on the back. I'll take care.